where immediate after any disaster, people in the context of Kutch earthquake, it become the many people was killed, many they were injured. They have lose their house is not livable in a condition. Those who houses were livable condition, but out of fear, people come out of the house. They don't want to go and stay in their house because it was a damage. And in this scenario, relief work plays a very important role in the terms of sharing food items, in the terms of sharing tent as a temporary shelter, the community kitchens, and the helping injured, transferring from village to the city and the Bhuj hospital. So this all work has happened as a part of a relief work phase. But Shelter Support and Innovation Cell team, at the time we were 27, or engineer, architect, social worker, and artisans were together in this. It was a very small team. It was 27 number, looks very big at that time, but it was actually a very small number looking at the disaster, the extent of a disaster. So when we were this relief work phase, when it took 3 or 4 months of this phase was on, and at the time we were come to know, interacted with the many communities, because we have, whenever we are visiting a different villages for the relief work, we interacted with the and we carefully listening their reflection on why earthquake, what is earthquake in their belief system, what is how their responses on how why structures collapse. And listening all this story was very interesting, and we come to know more about the communities, how the community are thinking in response to this disaster. So this was very important phase, and because we were participated in a relief phase, we were have an opportunity to understand community at the root level, and it is very important phase. And yeah, I'll then the second phase was the interim shelter. So after 3 months, the tent, because it was a very cold, it was a winter in a January, it was very cold. Normally there was a belief that after earthquake it become very cold, and it was actually very cold. It was unusually cold, and tent won't work in this cold, particularly because it's a desert, and in the night become very cold. So and after winter, the summer is also very harsh in Kutch. And so what everybody felt that policy, because policy will take some time to be in place. How to go, how to rebuild is based on how government is, what government policies is coming for the compensation, for the relocation or in situ. There was a big debate was that happened. And at the time what we felt that how about we start with the interim shelter before they build a permanent shelter, introducing interim shelter was looking from the community also was agreed upon this idea, and interim shelter phase was started. In interim shelter, this structure was built with the village community in Shelter Support and Innovation Cell campus. by using salvage building material. You see the different kind of stones and blocks are used, and only the 1.25 centimeter wall height was built, because that height was give confidence, because if even it fell, even in aftershocks or earthquake was keeps on happening every day, almost 1,000 plus aftershocks we experience after earthquake, and people were comfortable with the low height and very steep slope roof, which is light. So even the in aftershock, in a next earthquake, it collapse. It doesn't. People won't injured. And in this, we also introduced one band, because band we observed that they really help in to make earthquakes, and this was as an introduction to the band at the interim shelter. So interim shelter looks program was like this, that we provided 3 bags of cement to build this 1.2 meter, 1.25 meter wall from the debris. We supported them 24 bamboos and 550 mangrove pattern tiles, and we asked that you can build your own house. So everybody was agree, because the community felt that this is very positive activity that is started, and they feel that they are now rebuilding their life. No, that was a mindset at the time. And this implementation was happened through the village committee. NGO, we have identified the village where those villages who are most damaged, and the central office was perform a role of a coordination of a material, because the sourcing 550 tiles multiplied by 22,000 houses to be built was comes in a lakhs and lakhs, and procurement was a very big challenge at the time. But somehow we, with the help of everybody, we were able to do it. And the monitoring was also the central office responsibility. Rest of the work is done by the community, and some of the shelter, interim shelter was looking like that. Some of the structure is still in a use. This on a bottom right, this structure in Asumra sir is still in a, and many people have modified this interim shelter and make a part of a permanent structure. Many people has recycle mangrove pattern tile roof and under roof structure as a in their rebuilding. And so some of the facts about the interim shelter was that total 240 villages this program was we were able to cater, and total 22,000 houses was built. Total time in a 6 month we have able to build 22,000 houses. This actually people have built, and from the organization we were mobilized 7 crore rupees. But if we consider all people's contribution was 13 crores. So this interim shelter phase, we have become very confident. Okay, if you support the community and let the community build themselves, will make will make a lot of difference. It will the construction, you can speed up the construction, you can and how you transfer seismic safety features in a permanent shelter, and all such planning that happened during interim shelter. Yeah. So after interim shelter, we were started planning about the permanent shelter phase, and the challenges at that we identified when we were planning was design should be culturally appropriate, because Kutch is largest district in India and is jammed with many cultures. So if you go to north, it's the all animal husbandry culture, and animal husbandry is a main occupation. If you go into south, then it's a coastal line, though. So fishing community and the trading community are the main, and the dryland farming is the main occupation. In a central belt, is a it's a little agriculture, more agrarian communities are there. So all these different occupations and eco regions, sub eco regions of Kutch, we have a different culture was there, and they have their own identity as their typology of a house. So the design should be culturally appropriate, earthquake and cyclone resistance, because we cannot afford such a big disaster when in a next earthquake, whenever it's stuck, or a cyclone whenever it's stuck again. Fast construction, because 3 lakhs of houses was a big, massive, but and at the time we have with the limited human resources, with the limited all construction material. How we do a fast construction was a need for the time. Use of local material, available material, hence economical, low cost maintenance, eco-friendly, providing employment to the local. Vision was how we convert this condition to a development opportunity. So, in a permanent shelter program, our vision was how we convert this into an development opportunity. And many villages, this actually happened, and that gives us a very different kind of satisfaction to work. So the guiding principle that we have set for the permanent shelter, that upgradation of our local skill. So whatever local skill that has need to be upgraded. It was in a many skills that was traditional skill that was deteriorated over the period of time. Many new material, they mix the material with technical lesser detail or no detail that need to be upgraded. That was what we felt, and upgradation of a local skill was one of the parameter, that use of local material was extremely because it's if we use a local material, then within village themselves is capable to supply that material in the terms of sand, in the terms of sandstone, in terms of the random rubble stone, in the terms of the soil, in the terms of the salvage under structure. If we use all this material to make a permanent shelter, then the economy will recycle within the village, and that will help not their that will help them a lot in their normal life. So the mentally sound, it should be environment, because in a 300,000 houses, if we going to build in a 5 years, we were expecting that this program will go on for the 5 years, but we were able to make it in a 3 years. That's one of the very proud outcome of this project. And but simultaneously 300,000 constructing a 300,000 houses means creating a lots of impact on a neighborhood of villages, was also a concern. And that's why the technology should be the environmentally sound. The reconstruction work should be in fashion or a design in a way that people can easily. It should be cost effective because in a participatory approach, it was a need of a time because 60% of people decided to build their houses by themselves. So they have a limited fund to build their house. So a cost effective was a ground parameter that need to be addressed. Solution to the local problem. So there are in a certain technologies, the traditional technology, there were some problems due to the salinity and saline water was identified, and we need to find out the solution. And Kutch was a dry region, and if we are using cement extensively, and particularly in reinforced sill band, lintel band, roof band, vertical bar caching, the saline water was a big concern, and how to address this salinity was also at the time we found we need to find a solution for that, and entire construction should be the participatory inclusive. That was a need of our time. So I am taking a lot of time because there are lots of stories, but uh, I'll go a little fast because I have to keep some time for Tejas sir and Vivek sir. So this way the situation, and before we started permanent shelter program, we have started one program called Kadiya Sammelan. It was not a training program, but it was a Sammelan. It was a workshop. It is an artisan workshop. We invite 30 people, 30 artisans from different part of villages, different part of our Kutch, and the one cluster of villages. And this program was a 3 days workshop in which we were discussing about their view, how we should go about it in a reconstruction work, what are their views, what they know, what they need to know, and how we transfer the earthquake safety feature to the community. This program help us a lot in a many ways. And on the contrary, this artisans community, they have been shouldered. More than 2,000 artisans were participated in these workshops. And this many of these artisans have conducted a Kadiya Sabha in each villages they were coming from, and that they have carried the message of earthquake safety to the last person in a community, and this has created a magic. Believe me, this rural expert has created a magic. Yeah. This one manual that we have developed immediately, that તમે કર્યા છો, કચ્છને તમારી જરૂર છે. The training program was started for the masons to build earthquake resistant structures. Books such as You Are a Mason, Kutch Needs You were also published to empower the local mason to understand how to build earthquake resistant structure. In village scenario, the all structures are very simple. They made one or two room house, room houses or two room houses according to their economic condition and the cultural and occupation. And because Kutch we have a land is not a very like a thinly populated area, so we have a large. So we need a very in a very few villages. In the villages, if you go, very few houses is a ground plus one, but most of them are only a ground structure. So what government guideline and what we also felt looking at to the performance of the sill band, lintel band, roof band, and vertical bars, if we incorporate this 4 feature into the traditional building or any new construction, this become this is sufficient to make it earthquake resistant structure. So in this slide, if you see that there are it's a circular structure. That's a traditional structure in a northern part of Kutch. They've incorporated vertical bars, 6 vertical bars, and the seal band. In this photograph, you can see the seal band, and this is the concrete alternative. The concrete was been like they would detail it out very nicely. Yeah. Another important feature for the rebuilding was a cyclone-safe house, cyclone-safe roof. So, most of the community were using the Mangalore pattern tile. Country tile become out of fashion in the 2001, and most of the community they prefer the Mangalore pattern tile. But Mangalore pattern tile is not, if it is not tied to the purlins, then it's easily blown away by the cyclone. So we have developed cyclone safe hook, which can be made by themselves. We have also make one small device in which anybody, any no expertise is required, and if you see this hook was developed, which is which attached the tile with the roof. And the second, our traditional roof having one beam which support the roof above completely. And this beam, the traditional term was RD. This RD was not attached with the wall very firmly. So in earthquake, what we observed that the top ridge member and other beams work as a crowbar when in a little load the house has been shaking. The ridge was work as a crowbar, and many gable wall fall due to this, and that's why entire roof fell, and so the wall also collapsed, and that was bring a disaster. So what we have introduced, in spite of that traditional roofing system, either a basic king post or a queen post or a A-frame, which is very well tied to the band, lintel band or a roof band, which create a diaphragm, and all the roof will hold if we tied together on with the wall, then entire house work as a box, and it become very strong. No, not in only in earthquake, but it's also a requirement for the cyclone. So some of the permanent shelter that was emerged, there are many kind of the different community has opt for the different typology, and these are some of the pictures of different part of Kutch. Some of the community also have tried a very new material as a ferro cement channel because their need was their aspiration was having a flat roof, but casting RCC was not possible because that kind of infrastructure was not there on. Then some organization has transferred this how to make ferro cement channel. This structure is the traditional structure built with stabilized earth. That Tejas sir will talk more about that. There are due to the fund restriction, many community has not covered the veranda, but they have planned it while building their permanent shelter, that the veranda may come in a future as a future extension. So there was a lots of possibility that has emerged. Even rural urban community has opt for alternative technologies that stabilize that technology. I think Tejas sir will talk more about that. I'll leave. And northern part of our Kutch, the rehabilitated village was looking like that, and people are uh, proud of to be in a new house. That was a that gives us a total satisfaction. Yeah. Retrofitting was also was carried out, and been many training programs was conducted. All corners, those who are not been, there was no lintel band or corner bars. So the well mesh and how to attach well mesh in an existing structure and make a earthquake resistant structure, and retrofit that structure to make it an earthquake was also part of a program. During this, after this earthquake, Afghanistan also have one earthquake, and Professor Arya has invited us to share our experience with the Afghanistan, because Afghanistan government has invited us to write a guideline, because Afghanistan was building 90% of the structure was built by the using unstabilized earth, and make this sector earthquake resistant. What should be the guideline? So we have participated that in with the Professor area there. Thereafter, one earthquake happened in Iran, Bam. In that, we also participated, and understanding the local skill, local material. We have built one demonstration house there in their Bunyad-e Muskan office campus. Bunyad-e Muskan is equivalent to PWD in India, in context. We also participated in Banda Aceh tsunami rehabilitation work. Some of the houses that emerged from as a part of rehabilitation work. This is painted, but this is all stabilized or earthquake. We also, in Kashmir earthquake, they also, government has invited us to help them to design and make a policy for the interim shelter, because this earthquake was happened in the junction where the winter was approaching. So if there is no roof overhead, then it will lead to another disaster. So what we have designed with the community, that with the salvage wood, how we can make an interim shelter. And in Tandar and Uri Valley, 27,000 houses was built in just 3-month period, and that was really an experience working with the community, and bringing the community spirit on a yeah. We also participated in a Bihar rehabilitation work, Kosi. So thank you very much. There are so many things to say, but I think I'm stopping here. I'm handing over to Tejas. Tejas will. Tejas, can you take over?
Hello, good afternoon,
Fenika,
everyone.
sir, can I introduce you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, myself, Fenika Maiki. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kiran Waghela, sir, for sharing all the work done during the disaster earthquake 2001, all the shelter support relief work you have done. It is really appreciable. So thank you so much, sir. Now moving further to the second speaker of today's program on rural housing and earthquake safety, Mr. Tejas Kutak, sir. Mr. Tejas Kutak, sir, is Executive Director of Hunarshala Foundation. As we all know that Hunarshala Foundation is a non-profit organization based in Bhuj, Gujarat, which is working for the sustainable habitats. Sir, everyone is eagerly waiting to hear from you. So please take forward the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Excuse me. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. The time is little bit less now, so I'm directly coming to the my presentation.
Sorry to interrupt, but तेजस सर आपका mic muted है. Please unmute your mic.
Tejas sir, your mic is mute. Please unmute your mic, please.
Sorry, my computer is not allowing the screen sharing. I am joining in a Kiran Bhai's computer. Yeah, in 1 minute.
Okay, fine, fine, sir.
Hello. Hello.
You're audible.
Yes, sir.
Can I request Vivek sir? Is there some problem in my computer? So Vivek sir, can you take over the part and I will do later.
Vivek sir? Yes, yes.
I can make my presentation first, and
Thank you.
Tejas bhai can do it later, no problems.
Right, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Moving
sir,
ahead.
then wait for a moment, sir. Wait for a moment. Yeah, Venika, please.
Yes, sir. Now moving ahead, I would like to introduce the second speaker of this national FDP program, Mr. Vivek Raval sir. Talking about his education, he has done Bachelor of Architecture from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi in 1986 to 1992. He has published many articles and papers on post-disaster reconstruction in Nepal, national guidelines on temporary shelters for disaster-affected families, sustainable construction towards resilient human settlement, building damages and disaster-safe construction, and many more. Mr. Vivek Raval sir is currently supporting UNDP Nepal country office to undertake housing recovery projects and most importantly institutional strengthening of National Reconstruction Authority. Talking about the professional involvement, he is member of International Expert Committee for International Conference on Nepal's Reconstruction, advisor for housing reconstruction, founder member and former convener of ODRC. Now, without wasting much time, I will hand over this session to Vivek Raval sir to speak on rural housing and earthquake safe design. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for this introduction, and I was actually confused when Professor Sangvi mentioned that I should be talking in this session. So my presentation is kind of mix of two things. I'm discussing rural housing as well as I'll be specifically discussing little bit of Nepal project. So it is kind of both. Uh, Let me share the screen and then I can do further. How do I share this PDF?
Sir, there is an arrow on your screen on MS Team where
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see share desktop icon, but it allows me to share only this
Screen.
Microsoft Team.
No.
It is not. How do I share the?
Are you on a Apple computer or in a?
Oh, on Tejas, I am on Linux.
Oh, then it's fine.
Just a minute.
Apple manati chatwa.
Let me. Screen share is not really working.
Sir, when you move your cursor on the screen, I think you will
Yeah.
get certain icons there, where up arrow key is there. If it is there, up arrow. Is it there?
I mean, there
Up
is an arrow which is
Up arrow.
which is a share desktop icon.
Yeah. Open share.
Yeah.
When you click on that, then
Yeah.
what actually you have to share, that will come.
Yeah, no, it doesn't come. It shows me only this screen, the Microsoft Teams screen.
So click on that,
Okay,
that screen.
just a minute.
Yes.
Is it
Click
showing?
on that screen
Can
and
you see? Please.
Yes,
maybe
Yes,
if you
sir.
can see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, very
It is
good.
visible.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. It seems I'm technology constrained.
No, sir.
I thought I was pretty good with technology, but the reality is not that. Okay, let me begin with my presentation quickly. So I'm discussing rural housing and earthquake safety, and with some examples of our experience of post-earthquake reconstruction in Nepal. Before I get on to discussing Nepal, let me talk little bit about rural housing. When we say rural housing, it is very important to understand the difference between housing and houses. And we want to discuss housing. And it's a very interesting quote, and which forms the basis of all our perspectives with which we have been working for last more than 25-30 years, that housing should be seen as a verb. Housing is a verb. Kriya hai. It is not a noun. So the moment you see housing as a verb, you start understanding how rural people, rural communities see their houses. How do they think of their houses? So the key elements of rural housing process is that people need access to land. There is a process involved. How people get to own land, how do they get to use land? There can be various different forms of ownerships and tenure which gives them access to land, and which is an extremely important aspect of when we want to discuss safe housing, because lot of vulnerability for housing is related to land, where the house is located, where people are building. Similarly, the second aspect for housing process is access to finance. People need to access finance. They need, which is dependent on what they earn, what they save. It is also not only, there are various different ways through which they figure out their people borrow. There has to be an easy access to finance if we want to build house. Third element is access to information. Knowledge is required. How should one build? With what materials? With what technology? What are the norms what one should follow? What are the important things to follow? I mean, you need to know your climate, you need to know your geography, so many things. The fourth aspect is access to materials. People need to have access to materials. People need to access timber from the forests, stones from the land, bricks. People need to sometimes access industrial material through the markets. So people have to have access to materials, different type of materials. People need to access skills. House requires multiple skills to come together. There are physical labor involved. There is kind of an expert skill required of masonry, of carpentry, of bar bending, of welding. So all sorts of skills are required, and they have to be able to access all that. And it is by putting all these things together, having access to land, having access to finance, information, material, skills. Once you all can put all that together, you can build a house. So this process of rural housing involves gaining access to all this, and all these require different processes dependent on where they all lie, where the source is. Another important thing to know about rural housing is that rural housing is essentially an owner-driven housing, where house owners take their decisions. They control the process. They mobilize money. They decide the design. They buy the materials. They hire the artisans. They hire the contractors. It is they who decide. They are the ones who are the key drivers. In urban areas, the processes have become slightly different, particularly in big urban areas like say Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Delhi, Bombay, where most of the people are just buying their houses. It's like a consumer good, where you go, you have your budget, you have 4 or 5 options which builder is giving you, you just choose and buy. But rural housing is quite different, where the owner is still in control. They take decisions. Another important part of rural housing is very important to be understood if we are talking of earthquake safety, that most of the rural housing is incremental in nature. The house grows as the family grows, as family can afford more. The house may actually, initial construction may be small, it may be a small unit, but then people add, a room is added in the front, then another room may be added after a few years. When the child is born, one room gets added. When the child gets married, another room may get added, so on. And if there is more earning, there is more income, people add to the house. So So the whole house may not be built in one go. The house is built slowly over a period of time, and that can become challenging when we discuss earthquake safety. Let me discuss Nepal a little bit with this background, with these aspects of rural housing in mind. The reason we are discussing Nepal, because it is one of the most recent examples. This has been one. This is my most recent involvement also, and quite an extensive one. I have been involved in Nepal for last 5 years, starting from 2015 May. In April, on April 25th, there was a big earthquake in Gorkha district, with the epicenter being in Gorkha district. And then there was another major earthquake on 12th May with the epicenter in Sindhupalchok district. These are two districts in Nepal. I mean, Nepal has 31 districts overall. Not 31, I think many more. But 31 were earthquake affected districts, of which 14 were very severely affected. Then okay, maybe a little bit of detail will come little later about Nepal earthquake. But to support this whole rural housing construction program, there were various interventions taken up. As I discussed earlier, when we are talking of rural housing, we are essentially talking of owner-driven housing program where owners build the house. We are only playing a supportive role. So the nature of our support has been like this, that people needed help in managing or navigating through administrative procedures, because the government of Nepal was going to finance, and there were procedures involved in accessing that financial grant. People needed help on site where they were constructing. There were technical consultations required. People who were in urban areas, they had to take permission from the municipalities and had to get their designs approved. They did technical design services for building permit. Fourth, there was need for building capacities of different stakeholders who were involved. Community members, artisans, engineers, the Palika members, local leaders. So all of them required strengthening of capacities, because everybody was dealing with an extraordinary scale of challenges. Fifth was to assure the quality of construction. It was of paramount importance that reconstruction is disaster resistant and earthquake resistant. And sixth aspect was that there was need to develop appropriate technical solutions, because there were vulnerabilities in the kind of construction which existed before. That was the reason because of which there was such large scale damage, and so many houses had collapsed. So there was need of some technical interventions, developing local solutions. So this was the nature of support in Nepal program. Briefly about Nepal, about 4.5 lakh houses had collapsed, and nearly 9,000 people had died in this earthquake. 14 districts were very, very badly affected, and it was estimated there was a large exercise in 2015 taken up with support of UNDP, World Bank, and government of Nepal to estimate the cost of reconstruction and recovery. Only for housing, nearly $2.3 billion was the need estimated. Overall need was about $6.2 billion. Based on, I was actually part of the housing sector team to make this assessment of resources required for reconstruction. Based on our report, government of Nepal undertook a international conference to mobilize resources, because it was a huge scale of money required for reconstruction and recovery, about $6.2 billion, as I mentioned earlier. If you see, housing was nearly half of it. Nearly 40% of the resources were required for housing only. Other sectors like agriculture, livelihood, industries, and health, education, all those together, housing was the biggest component. Government of India was the largest donor to Nepal. $1 billion were committed to government of Nepal, and for various different sectors, including housing, education, health, and cultural heritage. Government of India decided to support 50,000 houses in Nepal. 27,000 of these 50,000 houses were in Gorkha district, and 23,000 in Nuwakot district, and UNDP and UNOPS were the two agencies which were involved to provide socio-technical support to house owners of these 50,000 houses. My involvement has been in 27,000 houses that have been taken up in Gorkha with support from Government of India. It is about $9 million project. So under this project, in last, it started in 2018 actually. 2015, when the earthquake happened, Nepal was undergoing a major transition where the Constituent Assembly had just declared their new constitution, and it had become a federal republic. So the policy making was not as smooth as we had seen it in India, where the governance systems are far more established. The national government was a new government, new prime minister, and new reconstruction authority was formed. They did not have a disaster management act, so they had to come up with a new act. So with all these complex processes, it took almost 2 years for Nepal to initiate the reconstruction program. They decided that every house owner will get about 3 lakh rupee support, that is about $3,000 in 3 stages of construction. So Government of India followed Government of Nepal's policy norms and provided $3,000 to each household as assistance. The house cost is almost double of this. So you can say that almost $3,000 were people's own contribution in each house. So this program was undertaken in 6 villages and 2 nagarpalikas. In Nepal reconstruction program, one of the very interesting feature has been that women have played an extremely critical role, very important role, not only as owners but also as artisans. And it has been quite an interesting experience because Nepal has a very high migration rate. Nepalis go to work outside, out of country. A lot of people come to Kathmandu to work, but also huge number of people go to work in India and to Middle East or Malaysia. These three are big destinations. Almost every family has one or two members who have migrated out, and there are many villages which are essentially women's villages now because they are the or old people who have been left behind. So women actually took very active role and started learning masonry. So in many villages you find actually women masons who have built many houses after earthquake, not only their own house but providing services to others. So you can see in the pictures that how they have learned bar bending, they are making bands. Another important aspect of Nepal reconstruction program has been to work with traditional construction practices. Nepal being a very difficult geography, many villages are very remotely located. Road network infrastructure is not very good. Not every village has electricity. Most of the construction season is essentially from December to April or May. Basically the winters, because summers and monsoons are when the agriculture work takes place and people are busy with agriculture, which is essential for their survival. So construction happens in the winters when agriculture cannot take place, and that is also the time when the water is less because it freezes. So technologies which require a lot of water are very difficult to be used. Excess is also a problem. So carrying material like cement and steel from Kathmandu Valley to these villages is not easy. So realizing all these constraints, government of Nepal was very pragmatic and quite positive about continuing and strengthening the traditional building practices. There was much larger acceptance of these technologies amongst people as well as amongst engineers and bureaucrats. With support from Professor Jagdish, who's based in Bangalore, a former professor from Indian Institute of Sciences, who has been helping us since Latur and Gujarat earthquake days, and who's done extensive experimental work and research work on earth-based technologies or earth as mortar typologies used, which are low strength typologies. He's done a lot of work. So with his help, this whole idea of containment reinforcement was evolved further. It was actually used even in Gujarat earthquake, after Gujarat earthquake, but those were the initial experiments, and few houses were built in Kutch with similar technologies. But After that, much more testing was taken up. More rigorous analysis was taken up, and this whole technology was then presented to Ministry of they have urban Ministry of Urban Development looks after building code process in Nepal. So there is a Department of Urban Development and Building Construction, DUDBC, which approved these technologies after a lot of consultation and review of technical results. So using these weld wire mesh after horizontal bands of weld wire mesh every 1.5 feet of construction, and then tying on both faces with vertical GI wires to contain the masonry. That kind of construction was taken up in these different villages. More than 2,500 masons were strengthened through various workshops and training programs and on-site construction work. Just want to show you some photographs just to convey. Now, these are the traditional houses that Nepali artisans have built on their own, and so just look at how beautiful these houses in Nepal, and you will find similar houses in Uttarakhand, in Himachal, or Jammu Kashmir. If you see the kind of houses which modern day engineers have promoted and supported, then you find these kind of houses. Both these are examples of Nepal, not in our project area, but many such houses are now being built after earthquake. But you can see the kind of houses they had earlier, which are built by local artisans without any help from engineers. And these are the houses we modern day engineers or architects go and help with. This is what we end up promoting. What a contrast it is. And why anybody on earth would like to have these houses, in name of earthquake safety. Sometimes most of the times we end up building one of the most ugliest and unsustainable, climatically most inappropriate buildings. What is important is that we work with local artisans and local communities, and it is possible to take the traditional technologies forward and make disaster resistant houses. So this is one of the example. This photograph is one house from our project area, which is stone masonry. You can see which has a timber intermediate floor and an attic above with a lightweight gable end wall, and it is done through containment reinforcement with there are if you look carefully, you will see vertical containment GI wires which are holding or strengthening these stone masonry walls. Of course, there are bands of weld wire mesh every 1.5 feet in this masonry, which are not visible, but that's the beauty. It retains the aesthetics of traditional houses. So with very simple interventions, if one interacts with local artisans, solutions are possible within their own materials and skills. Now I would just, this is my concluding slide, just 4 points finally. That number one, empower the local communities, and it is important that we interact with them as they are resourceful, they are knowledgeable, they are experienced. There is no reason for us to assume that rural house owner or rural household or rural family, they don't know anything. We know everything, and we don't need to go and tell them. No, we need to ensure that they don't lose their control. They continue to be empowered. Secondly, we need to empower local artisans. Again, local artisans are the resource person and service provider for local communities. And it is they who enjoy the trust of the local community, not us. No, local artisan advises and guides, people listen. We go and guide, we do not understand any of their constraint in their life, of their livelihood, how they live, their lifestyle, we don't understand. And local artisan understands and all that, and they can communicate in a language or the phrases which they understand. So empower local artisans if we want houses to be safe. Thirdly, we need to learn and share the knowledge. We need to learn, people need to learn. They have traditional knowledge and wisdom, we have scientific tools. So they have something, we have something. They don't know something, we also do not know some things. We have very little knowledge about mud or bamboo, for example. So there are things which we need to learn, there are things which they need to learn. So we need to both learn and share our knowledge. And lastly, that we need to provide services for the needs that are defined by the community. We should not decide what they need. The problem happens when we decide what they will need. And unfortunately, what happens is, after earthquake or after any disaster, we take over the process. We start controlling everything and we start taking decisions. We decide for them. And that is where we can guarantee, that is where we basically ensure that they will never be earthquake safe. Because earthquake safety is not about just one house, one little structure which we will make. It is about ensuring a sustainable process, which goes on forever, building even after we are not there. After an earthquake, we may be there for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years maximum. After that, we will be gone. People will be on their own. They have to build their own houses. So while we are there, we might build good, safe house, disaster resistant house, which definitely is going to be uglier than what they used to build. Even if you derive satisfaction that it is safe, it is only safe for that small little structure, 1 room or 2 rooms. They can be safe only if you ensure that it remains their process and you don't control it. You don't take over their control. So that has been, these have been our learning in our project. That is what I put before you for your consideration. And if there are questions or if there is a discussion, I'll be happy to share my experiences and my learning more on whatever required. Thank you very much, and thank you, Professor Sanghvi, for organizing this and for providing this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vivek Rawal, sir. The information and the knowledge you shared with all of us is really valuable. And the last 4 points you mentioned, that the local community, local artisans the learning and sharing, and lastly, give the support as needed was the best part of this session. So once again, thank you so much, sir. We will take the questions. We will take the questions at the end of this session. Let's move forward further for the last speaker of this session. I would like to invite Mr. Tejas Kutak, sir. He is the Executive Director of Hunarshala Foundation. And sir, please take forward the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm coming directly to the my presentation. Is the time is already over. I will take. I will make my best to take less time. Yeah. Construction of cement stabilized rammed earth dwelling houses. I'm coming to the directly our experience in a Kutch earthquake in 2001. Broadly, Kiran sir has explained about the Kutch, so I'm not going in a seat, but some of the slides you can see the variety, the landscape of Kutch, the Great Run of Kutch, and all the landscape. So many different kind of culture and environment Kutch has, and this is the community, many different communities. So I'm not going deep in our Kutch earthquake part. So Kiran sir has already explained all these things. I'm coming to directly to the construction with the earth, what we experience and how we did the 2,000 houses, more than 2,000 houses in Kutch. If we see the pre-earthquake roof structure, community called a roof, it's a bunga structure. It's actually the circular structure with the thatch heap roof. Normally the three part of the structure like a roof, wall and floor. So in a tradition, the thatch roof is they use for the roofing. Wall is a adobe and unstabilized or a cob or wattle daub, and floor is a mud. So they want to change the after earthquake rehabilitation program. They don't want to maintain the structure in a routine, but they want the earth is a main material in a construction, and they want the same type of structure like circular structures and heap roof. So this is the how we come. The design is we change the thatch to the mangrove tile with the wooden structure. Adobe unstabilized to the stabilized construction. The cement stabilized, it means compressed stabilized earth brick we have used, or the stabilized rammed earth we use as a walling system. And floor is a solid cement floor. If we go to the housing typology, how they built in a big platform like a circular structure, and like a Vivek sir is explained. Normally, it's they do extension in a time by time. So they build one structure, then another structure, they connect. So how they built traditionally, and then section wise, you can see the section. So if we consider this kind of construction in their typology with the little bit different, like a stabilized earth construction. So our experience in how we can transfer the technique. So Hunarshala had set up a Mati unit, is earth unit, which mentored by the IISc and Dr. Yogananda. They transfer the technique, what they learned, their more than 30 years experience at that time. And training program, we started, Mati unit received the training program from the IISc and CSR. It's based in Auroville. Follow-up training they have conducted, and Mati unit has derived a training program and professionals, rural expert, and the artisans. So transferring this technology to local community, the Mati unit offered a training program now for the artisan community. And there is a three different part: hands-on training program, on-site training program, and follow-up training program. To initiate the training program, demonstration houses was constructed in every village, involved a team of local artisans. Then we set up a laboratory for the appropriate of technology because of the in a Kutch region we have the soil are a little bit different to compare to the southern part of India that they have set up. So we have the salinity which give the erosion in a structure. We have the saline water and a different kind of soil, like I said, it's a very sandy and silty soil. So setting up a laboratory help in a selection of right kind of soil, mixed design and quality control in a mass scale actually. To check the soil to pH and salinity, that we derive the certain kind of system to get the confidence in a practice in a construction. Or density is a main part of the when we are stabilizing the earth. Is density is a main part, and we connect the density to get the proper density, so we get the proper compressive strength. And it's a quality control. This is the graph showing which gives directly to the strength of the structure. All this thing is happening, and Vivek sir has said, Kiran sir is also said that Dr. Yogan, Professor K.S. Jagdish, which are helping in that time, and Dr. Arya, Professor Arya sir has passing authority and the part of GSDMA and has endorsed this technique. And the result, the 56 villages adopted this technology in Kutch, which was approximate 25% of total liberation program, and a guideline for the construction of stabilized earth wall building is established and published with by the government. If you go in a design features, it's a inner diameter is around 4.5 meter and wall height is 2.1 meter and wall thickness is 23 centimeter. It's a hexagon conical roof with the wooden structure, and the height is around wall height is around 2.5, and the roof height from the lintel to the crown is around 2.1. Is the scale and the design is developed with the local community, but the technique all are earthquake safe to make the earthquake safe structure. So earthquake resistant features for the Bunga that developed is achieve earthquake safety was the most critical part, and the load bearing construction definitely and the cell completely the earthquake resistant code IS code 4326 in 1993. As per the code, sill, lintel, and the roof band are required, and the corner vertical bars. So we have incorporated the 6 vertical bar in dividing the around 50-foot periphery of structure, and all bands as per the code. So this is the structures, some of structures photograph which built in 2001. Now, if you go in the technique in a little bit deeper, the formwork which we have developed, because of we want to construct very fast 2000 houses in a certain period. So simple construction processes, it has to be user friendly, speedy construction, easy to install dismantle the formwork, strong enough, and the formwork should be in a multiple use, flexible enough for the opening and closing, and formwork which is fair finished surface, because of we don't want to plaster, and it's whatever the structure, it could be the same, no plaster be applied. So all these things we incorporate in a formwork, like this is the formwork in a house. So all different components that we have designed. So I'm not going deep in a different part if we don't have much time, but it's a formwork system. Then the city and people want rectangle house, so we develop also the metal and the wood rectangle structures formwork, and this is all different formwork we have designed. So construction process is a 22 around 22 artisans in a one day. They have complete full structure. This is what we have achieved, circular structure in a representation program. If we divide step by step, so 6 to 8 artisans, they erect the formwork. Then second step is the local community. They sieve the soil and they help the artisans for the mixing. About 6 artisans prepare the wet soil sand mix and pour into the formwork. And this soil consists around 70% sand content and 8% cement. We added by weight. Simultaneously, each layer concrete is being poured in a vertical bar, particularly in a vertical bar. So force is 8 artisans immediately they start the process ramming the soil mixes manually using the rammer. Loosely filled layer around 120 mm before ramming and around 8 mm after ramming. Rammer use the 2 type of rammer we use in the all over part is around 150 by 150 square rammer, and where the vertical bars are there we have used smaller size 75 by 150 mm. It's around 7 to 10 kilo rammer, both different 7 and 10 kilo. Step third is if we reach when sill level, we pour the concrete with the bars, and finally in a one day we complete one structure. So this is different photograph, and 28 days curing required as we use 8% cement in a soil. Process we saw, but how communities take. So community prefer rammed earth because of the rammed earth being monolithic structure. They see and they check by themselves. And there was a need for the skilled mason and in a masonry, and house owner could not participate in the construction process. So this process they easily participate in a curing part, mixing part, insulation part, and ramming part. So superstructure for the one house completed in a day, and seismic feature was easily incorporated because of the in a masonry structure is little bit different. Less maintenance because of there is no plaster, nothing much. There is no need for the plastering, and rammed earth technology help in generating the local economy. So after this our experience, utilization of non-organic solid waste we have built in many projects, and China clay industry generated in a Kutch around 30,000 ton of the solid waste every month. So the solid waste basically contains around 70% sand content, and it's actually sealed a little bit of clay. So this kind of inorganic waste we use when we work in a city level construction in Bhuj. So when people accept something, the being to make it their own by creating, thereby making it a part of their tradition over the years. So this is what the journey so far. I am taking. Thank you all because I try to take less time, and thank you for giving the time to us. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tejas Kutak sir, for sharing your thoughts and experience with us. Now I would like to call if anyone is having any questions or regarding the topic or queries, you may ask.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello. Sir, my question is regarding the cost of construction.
Yeah, the cost of construction in a Kutch, it was 128 rupees per square feet at that time. In this cost, the steel and the cement was subsidized by government. At the time, government policy has decided the cement rate remain 100 rupees a bag, and steel has I'm forgetting the figure, but it was subsidized and of course.
Sir, my second
And this
question
cost
is
doesn't,
regarding the foundation.
sorry. This cost doesn't include plumbing and electrical gadgets. Yeah.
Okay. Sir, what about foundation? You have done PCC or some plum concrete?
In a foundation, the Kutch has a tradition of random rubble and sand packing foundation, and that this was approved by GSDMA through the professional area, and all the structure have not substructure has not used any cement, but it's a layer by layer. They fill the foundation with the rubble and sand and pack it with the by pouring water, and it becomes very strong foundation. It gives very traditional, and no cement is used till
Thank you.
this foundation reach minus 15 ground level. 0.15 ground level, minus 0.15 ground level. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
my pleasure, my pleasure.
Any more question, please? Participants? Hello. Any more question, please?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, yes, please. Yes,
Uh,
please.
just so regarding the previous question, so how you can ensure the binding property between rubble and sand if you are not using the cement?
Sir, the foundation is confined on the three side by the soil. So the foundation base and the two side on the earth. So this foundation is confined by from the three side by the earth itself, right? And on the fourth side there is a superstructure. So when this foundation reach minus 15 level from the ground level, there is a concrete plain PCC band, yeah, and on this PCC the vertical bar was installed, yeah, and then
Okay.
plinth construction started with the cement mortar 1:6. Yeah. And
Okay.
when it reaches the plinth level, it has a plinth band and then sill band and then the lintel band. In a circular structure, lintel band and the roof band was the same, but other structure, the lintel band and the roof band was separate. So that's the way. And I think for the foundation, the bond strength is not required between two masonry unit. That's what. But in earthquake foundation, we have not never in 2001 earthquake we have not noticed that any structure has damage below plinth level. So most of the structure was damaged above plinth level. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Like and this technique we come to know about from the workshops that we were conducted in the initial phase, and one of the artisan who has was challenged by the another artisan without using cement, this will not stick to each other. Then he said, okay, I will make a foundation and try to pull out one stone from that. You cannot. And it was actually, he has proved his technique. Yeah. And then we have shared it with the GSDMA and they have approved this technique.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon.
Sir, thickness of wall and the height of the construction, sir.
Thickness of most of the wall it was 23 centimeters, but in where the rubble stone masonry was done, it was 37.5 centimeter to 45 centimeter. I think in Nepal, Vivek sir can answer.
Yeah, it is wherever it is mud mortar used, it is 45 centimeters.
Sir, any reinforcement inside provide?
There were vertical bar was given in a Kutch earthquake, and the whole vertical bar was covered by the concrete gate M20, 1:1.5:3.
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
and
Thank you, sir.
in case of Nepal, there have been multiple ways of reinforcing stone masonry. Government of Nepal approved use of timber with stone masonry, approved corner reinforcement bars, as well as containment with GI wires. So there are multiple options for people for vertical and horizontal reinforcement.
Yes, any more question, please?
I can see there is some question for Tejas Bhai on the chat.
Yeah. It is said that after how many hours the formwork is removed, and is there any process to be done post removal of the formwork?
I think this is about rammed earth.
Yeah.
In a Ramda, there are three stages. So one stage is when we casted two stages, when you can remove the first stage, and this stage will be assembled on the another one. So it will you can decutter within 2 hours, I think. So this formwork was a slip form. It was work as a slip form.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. The next question to Tejas Kotak, sir. That rural housing, shall it be included in NBC or GDCR?
The stabilized construction, the code, the revision, second revision is already there. IISC and the team has already built the stabilized earth brick and the rammed earth part. And there is a guideline, there is a ground plus one guideline. The earthquake safe houses is already published by the government.
I think now the stabilizer technology, the Bureau of Indian Standard has published the code. So now you can design. I think the mixed design is similar process with the as a concrete design.
Okay. Again, one more question to Tejas, sir.
Yeah.
Are CSAB blocks are used, or it is purely rammed earth construction?
No, CSAB and the rammed earth both we have used. Around 50% we can say, or 40-60%. Rammed earth we use more because it's very fast, and we have around 11 formwork we have. So in a day we complete 11 houses. So stabilize earth brick, the production, and we need to do the masonry. So where the production center we set up in a Khavda. So the Khavda region, there nearby we have done the stabilized earth brick, and the little bit away from the Khavda, the northern part. So there we build with the Ramdar, like in Hodko, Berendiara, Tuga, the outer part of the Khavda, that we build with the Ramdar. So around 40 or 60%, both the technique we have used in this program.
Okay.
Only construction technique is different, but the body of material and its behavior is similar. The Ramdar construction, the same the body of material, and in compressed stabilized earth brick there is the same body of material, but there is a construct technique was different.
Okay, sir. Any more question? I think no question now onward. So
Okay.
here we are concluding the session, and if any of the expert want to make concluding remarks, please.
I think how about Vivek, you start and I'll join you.
Yeah,
Very
I
briefly,
think, but yeah, I mean, is there any, I mean, I have said what I wanted to say, so I guess,
and I think from my side, I want to say the same thing, but I will say my statement is more on a personal ground. Yeah. After passing my engineering, I felt that there are a gap between academia and the in real world. And what I felt in these 40 years of journey, this gap is becoming more in some area more, and some area the education system has a bridge a gap. So there is still a lot of work need to be done between the actual practice and the academia. Yeah, and working with the community. This is my take, sir. And I think, yeah, and it's yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I want to say something about this. So we have practiced around 20 years, and lots of help got from different community and the experts. And if anything, any kind of collaboration, any kind of help, or if we need any kind of help, we definitely come to you. Yeah. So
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
yeah. I think feel free to ask, and we collaborate more. I think so. This is what I want to say only. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we also believe in the collaborative approach, and I hope LD College is doing some work in this vernacular housing, and I think we will keep on working efficiently and effectively in future also, sir.
Yeah. Last 3 years, sir, you are one or two students you are sending,
Yes.
and on earthquake part in earth construction building. So this year also 2 students you have sent, and we are working together.
And I think we also learn from the students they come in this setup, like because they have a fresh, unconditioned eye, and they see sometimes things very differently. And we consider is their contribution in this collaboration. We look forward for more such collaboration, and we join hand in hand to become better and better.
Yeah, yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will do that. Yeah. Vivek, sir.
yeah, thank you very much, Professor Sanghvi. I just hope that, I mean, presentations were focused on the kind of area you were looking for. I have not really gone through the whole structure of the training program, which has been going on for 5 days. But the focus of my presentation was that you know a typical engineering approach when we talk about rural housing, you have to also get into socio-technical, socio-economic aspects of housing, and it is only by taking that kind of a comprehensive, integrated approach, we can hope to influence and make the rural housing safer. So it is just that one little remark that I again can emphasize.
Yes, sir.
And thank you so much for all.
Sir, thank you on behalf of our team, and it was really wonderful session. All three of you have conducted, and I think participants have got the insight of the rural housing, and I think they also get inspiration to work in this particular area. And I think many of the participants are encouraged also. Sir, thank you very much once again for sharing your and your experience, and you made a value addition to our participants, and thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you all.
And thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Now, one request to participants, all participants. Our last session, it is a feedback session, and it's a valedictory function. So our chief